Welcome everyone to the rise of D2C e-commerce, how to leverage customer experience and grow even faster. Here with me today, I have Ben and Eli. But before we get started, I want to do mention a couple housekeeping things. This webinar is being recorded and it's going to be available under the resources tab at hawke.com. Please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen to post your questions, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end of the webinar. Later today, you're going to receive an email link with a survey link. It's going to take about 2 to 3 minutes to complete. We ask that you take the time to fill this out. So it'll help us improve our webinar offerings in the future and making sure we're sharing with you the type of content you guys are looking for. Without further ado, I want to welcome Ben and Eli here today and dive into a quick introduction of who I am and my relation to Hawke Media. My name is Lauren Costanza. I'm the Associate Director of Lifecycle Marketing Operations at Hawke. Hawke is known to be your outsourced CMO. It's a company that I love to work for, centered around our customers and putting the client's success ahead of our own. We offer a la carte menu of services, month-to-month contracts to get you what you need when you need it. Here are some of our services. We do everything from paid search, paid social. I'm lucky enough to be on the lifecycle team, which I'll be talking about today as well. For lifecycle, love to give you guys a quick little overview of what we do at Hawke. We start with looking into your current ESP, whether you're on one or not, dive into strategy, which we'll be talking about today. We do copy and designs for email marketing, integrate and QA across all other platforms. I know Outlook can be a little troublesome for some users, and we do our best to make sure your email appears perfect wherever it is going. Definitely recommend, if you want to learn more, to visit our website. Today's speakers are going to be myself, Ben Jones. He's the founder and CEO of Ojai. And then we have Eli West, the Director of Customer Experience at Lollipop. Ben, I'll let you introduce yourself and Ojai.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm Ben, founder and CEO of Ojai. Ojai is an instant commerce platform, and what that means is we enable e-commerce brands to offer a sub-hour and sub-2-hour delivery experience through their own website. And we do that through a series of micro warehouses, so small, unused spaces within a city, hyper-local to the end consumer. And we use a lot of our technology and data models to forward position inventory very close to the consumer so that when they come to your website and check out, they can get the product within 2 hours. Why do brands do this with us? They do it because it really is a significant growth driver for them. And that post-purchase experience really helps drive increased repeat purchase rates. So customers who get 2-hour delivery come back and buy much more frequently than customers that get even same day or next day delivery. And that translates into much higher lifetime value. So we have 3 main service levels that we offer through Ojai: instant, which is sub-hour, sub-2-hour; same day, which is important for subscription customers and allows them to schedule orders at any point throughout the day; and then next day delivery that covers a broader reach around the city center. We try and be really plug and play. We make the system extremely easy for brands to onboard. It takes less than 20 minutes from a technical integration standpoint. We have plugins with Shopify, WooCommerce, and soon to be BigCommerce. And we also make it really simple from an operational perspective to get inventory into our network with a hub and spoke model, which is on the next slide here. We have a hub and spoke model, which makes it very, very easy for your operations team to just plug in our system. We pull inventory into our hubs and then redistribute it throughout the network. The real focus and the real value of Ojai is that it is a brand first experience. Your brand is front and center. The transactions taking place on your website, you retain ownership of the customer data, that relationship and that brand story that's so important. And we build this whole branded experience, this whole branded instant experience with your brand front and center. So for the consumer, they feel like they're interacting with you all the way through to bag opening. Finally, this really does drive significant growth for brands. And we're really flipping the script on traditionally logistics, delivery has been seen as a cost center for brands. And really what we're demonstrating is that with Instant, it really becomes a huge growth driver for any e-commerce brand.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm going to pass it over to Eli from OliPop.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Pleasure to share the stage with Ben and Lauren. A little bit about OliPop. Soda is a 96% household penetrated beverage that's objectively not great for you. But the reason why it's everywhere is because people love it and it's nostalgic and delicious and brings people together. OliPop is a new kind of soda. It's a healthier take on the delicious nostalgic flavors you grew up with. Instead of like 39 or 42 grams of sugar, it's got 2 to 5 grams of sugar and 9 grams of fiber in each can. So it's actually good for you. And it's the fastest growing functional beverage in the US. And, you know, like you can see on the slide, we've passed along 75 million grams of fiber, which is an insane stat. You can skip to the next slide. As far as, you know, I joined in 2020, and in the last year and 8 months, we've gone from a couple hundred stores to over 10,000 stores across the country at this point. So the slide's a couple months old, but we just launched nationally with Target, and you can find this at Whole Foods, ShopRite, Kroger, Sprouts, across the country. So we're in stores across the country, as well as online at drinklollipop.com, which is more of my focus. And you can skip to the next slide. The great part about OliPop is, aside from the delicious flavors, it's also got a lot of ingredients you wouldn't generally expect in a soda, like slippery elm bark and kudzu root and marshmallow root and cassava fiber and a bunch of things that are great for your microbiome and nutrient diversity. It's just a soda with benefits, which is never a bad thing, and a lot of good things. Some of the flavors, so these are our current flavors. Grape is actually the newest one. Vintage Cola, which is your kind of Coke Pepsi. Strawberry Vanilla, which is like a strawberry cream, which is one of our best sellers. Classic Root Beer, also a top seller. Ginger Lemon, which is our cult classic. Great in a Moscow Mule. Cherry Vanilla, which folks say tastes like cherry pie. Orange Cream, that's really Orange Squeeze. Orange Cream was our seasonal classic. Orange Squeeze, which is also one of our newer and best-selling ones, and the Classic Grape, which, funny story, is actually was our number one requested flavor, and we pulled all that data from consumers. Every time anyone requests a flavor, we put it in a spreadsheet, and that was our number one flavor. So we just launched that a couple months ago, and it's been booming. So that's a little bit about OliPop.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for introducing yourselves and your companies. Definitely excited to dive into our fireside chat today. Wanted to start off by talking about how this new marketplace we're in has played a role in shaping consumer expectations. If either you want to speak on how big box stores have shaped what it means to kind of shop for consumers and how that affects smaller D2C brands. Eli, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, of course. So OliPop is a massive seller in retail. And when we think about retail, OliPop is a can on the shelf. And the speed between finding a potential new product and tasting it, that instant gratification is a huge player. And when we think about e-commerce, it's wildly different, because when you find us on an ad or hear about us from a friend and kind of hop on the website and go through the experience and place the order until you actually get the product, minus the Ojai experience, which we'll chat about in a bit. Traditional e-commerce is from placing of the order until you get the order. I'd say most of the magic is lost, and it's something we think about often. Is like, how do we sustain that magical feeling that people have when they find the product and get it and enjoy it until kind of UPS or FedEx gets it on a box at their door. And that for us is like, on the retail side, there's grab it off the shelf, instant gratification, try it, you love it, you're obsessed, you're a fan. D2C, we can kind of take you through this whole experience. It's a journey. It's you find us on that UGC ad, or your friend loves it, and you go through this beautifully designed site, and you kind of go through the whole process, and it's just so wildly different. But I think the fascinating part is there's so much to learn on the D2C side from retail, and from the retail to D2C, and that's the fun part about OliPop being omni-channel, is we're constantly kind of pulling insights and data points from both sides and kind of feeding it back to the other.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that how you mentioned how there's that lag between delivery and people receiving things. I don't know, on the email side, we send that post-purchase email, your delivery is coming. And for me, I keep that email in my inbox and check the tracking number almost every day, just waiting for something to arrive. And there is that lag that we're not used to with big companies that you see when you shop small, but we all want to support small. And I think that's where Ojai comes in and kind of makes it easier for those brands to compete with the big businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a big reason for founding the company, is we recognize that for a consumer, increasingly that what we call that post-purchase experience, what happens once you check out, is just as important in terms of their perception of a brand as the pre-purchase experience. But there was really no good platform out there that allowed brands to offer as amazing a post-purchase experience as Amazon could do, for example, or any of the emerging kind of instant delivery marketplaces. And so that was really the influence for starting Ojai, is how do we build a platform that enables every brand to offer incredible post-purchase experiences in the same way that someone like a Shopify enables every brand to offer amazing pre-purchase experiences. And so the first step of that, the first building block in that post-purchase experience is the delivery piece. And we looked at it and said, like, where does the world end in terms of delivery speed? And for us, it's just inevitable that it's going to be instant. It's not going to stop at next day. It's not going to stop even at same day. It really is going to be instant. And so how do we build a platform from day one that allows brands to offer that incredible instant experience and keep that magic that Ellie alluded to all the way through, from checkout all the way through to bag opening?
And how do you guys think the last 3 years has kind of shaped that marketplace at a faster speed?
I can take that one. So I think we've seen since COVID this real paradigm shift in terms of consumer expectation. Pre-COVID, I started the company 2019, end of 2019. Pre-COVID, we spoke to brands, and brands were honestly like, hey, like, I'm not sure I really need to get something to my customer instantly. Like 2-day delivery is fine. And what we've seen with COVID is really this acceleration of consumer demand for instant. And that you see that in the B2C space with, the rise of fast grocery and some of these other new platforms that are offering very, very fast delivery to the end consumer. But you also see it in the direct to consumer space. And, Amazon is continuously pushing faster and faster delivery times, and everyone else is trying to keep up. So I think we've seen the market really accelerate, and we're still very much at the bleeding edge here. Like I think we're just at the beginning of true market adoption of instant. But as Eli will allude to, like, I think it's when brands really embrace it, it really contributes to significant growth for them.
Absolutely. And Eli, what kind of changes did you see when you guys did start embracing Ojai?
Yeah, I think the tricky thing with consumer experience broadly is customers have, expectations around a lot of different things. Most brands, when they think about customer experience, they're like, how do I kind of build these peaks and go above and beyond and do crazy cool stuff, and very rarely think about how do we fill the valleys before building the peaks. And what that looks like is there's this expectation of like, how can I surprise and delight, and how can I kind of make people fall in love with the brand? But the basic expectation of shipping things when you say you will and getting it to the customer when you say you will is often not met. And we think about this space broadly, like OliPop as a whole is like, we're selling healthy soda, so we're objectively meeting the customer where they're at, right? Like we're not selling greens, but we're looking to do that across the board. So we're looking to meet the customer where they're at. Wherever they want to purchase OliPop, we'll be there. And the other thing we want to do is we don't want to push them to, okay, the only way you can get this quickly is by picking it up on a GoPuff or like picking it up on Amazon. And that's really like, just because you're purchasing on our website doesn't mean you have to lose and wait longer. And that's kind of the Ojai experience, is like, how can we give you the opportunity to buy directly through us, stay in touch with us, get on our marketing and be excited for a new launch and get early access to new flavors, but all while keeping the same expectation and meeting those expectations with a platform like Ojai. And to Ben's point, like the data speaks for itself, like higher LTV, higher AOV, the customer return rate across the board is solid, and even NPS on shipping and delivery has crept up by shifting from a all FedEx, UPS, especially around times of the year like holidays, where there's just a big old mess across the network. And we specifically, even on the marketing side, we specifically will segment customers in the zip codes that Ojai operates in at the moment. We'll segment those customers and be like, even Super Bowl, right? It's like you can order stuff today and get it today. And that kind of surprise and delight, both on the wow, I didn't know I can do that, and also on the expectation setting is phenomenal. And it's fun stuff.
Yeah, there's a couple of points there that caught my email ears, and I love that analogy of trying to fill the peaks and valleys, especially when it comes to marketing and email marketing. You send your campaign, you send your sale, the customer orders, and now they're waiting for who knows how long to get their delivery there. But with Ojai, you're able to communicate a little bit more and a little more precisely. And like you said, with that segmentation, at email, we're all about don't batch blast. You need to segment to your audience and speak to them directly. And if I know I can get my OliPop from Ojai just hours before the game, that's how I'm going to order it, so that I don't have to leave and go to a grocery store. So I think that's a really cool way to kind of communicate with your customers and keep them excited about that journey. Something else I wanted to touch on, though, was sustainability through all this. I know that's becoming more and more important for customers, and that's the level of transparency they're looking for from the businesses they interact with. How has Ojai been able to help the companies they work with like show that sustainability in their practices there?
Yeah, and this was a core founding principle of Ojai, is we wanted to create something that was not only the future of how customers get their products, but that was going to be long lasting, and by doing that, it had to be sustainable from the get-go. And so the various ways that we do that are by using all of our data to forward position inventory very close to the end consumer before they order. It allows us to use networks of bike couriers, people on foot, to actually do the last mile. And generally what you see in e-commerce is, as you go faster and faster in terms of delivery times, it gets less and less sustainable. As you go from 2-day ship or 5-day grounds to 2-day to next day, a lot of next day orders go on an airplane at some point. That Amazon has obviously invested in a huge fleet of airplanes to fly things around the country to meet that next day delivery promise. Is actually incredibly bad for the environment. But as soon as there's this tipping point once you go to instant, where suddenly inventory is really close to the customer and it can be trucked there over a long period of time. You never need to put it on a plane, and that allows you then to connect to bike couriers to do the last mile delivery. The second aspect from a sustainability standpoint for us is by forward positioning the inventory, it allows us to eliminate cardboard from the majority of our deliveries. And so all of our same day and rush, so sub 2 hour orders, are generally delivered with most brands in reusable tote bags. And that's much more sustainable, and cardboard is a huge environmental problem in e-commerce. It's often not really spoken about. And I think the stats, even from 2 years ago when e-commerce was much smaller than it is today, with over 1 billion trees of cardboard are used every single year in the US e-commerce. So we're helping eliminate cardboard. And then finally, we just announced a couple of weeks ago that there is inevitably some carbon generated still through our delivery networks. And so we just announced a partnership with a company called EcoCart to carbon offset any remaining carbon that's produced through our network. And so that means that I think we're really proud to say that Ojai is one of the first networks that allows every single delivery that goes through us to be completely carbon neutral. So it's a really important thing. And I think it's important that, as we start building businesses today, we have sustainability just front and center in what we do.
Yeah, I love that. And congratulations on all of that. Those are huge steps that you guys are making. And I know nowadays when you receive emails from brands, like you want to see that message of sustainability, like we're going to get this to you quickly, but we're going to do it that's in a way that's healthy for the earth. You're seeing more and more people want that, especially the younger generations, speaking for myself and all those even younger Gen Zers out there. Eli, OliPop, how do you use this type of marketing to communicate to your audience when they're going through the shopping process?
Now hearing, Ben's pitch, I'm excited to even do so more. As a business, obviously shipping cans across the country isn't super easy and simple. And we're always kind of looking to like, how do we eliminate more cardboard? How do we make sure everything's recyclable, et cetera, et cetera. But to Ben's point, every Ojai order comes in a reusable green OliPop bag. And that's a super cool way to kind of eliminate plastic, eliminate the cardboard box from day one. And yeah, I mean, we continue to focus on these initiatives.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know everybody wants their free tote bag nowadays too. So that's a really cool kind of upsell opportunity you get there to continue that customer experience of I'm making a difference and I'm making a difference for my health as well. I wanted to talk a little bit about for brands that might not be on the email side to kind of help brands get money for like if shipping seems unattainable for them. I know a lot of small brands start out a little nervous to offer free shipping, discounted shipping and things like that, but that's what customers are looking for. I know there's like a big talk about ROI when it comes to instant deliverability. Can you speak to that, Ben?
Sorry, the question was around how do we make this sustainable from a cost perspective?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we find that for most brands we work with, actually we are cheaper for them than ground shipping. So we actually save them money from a shipping perspective. And that again is because you're forward positioning the inventory very close to the customer. And that's where all of our data comes in and the algorithms to make sure we're positioning inventory in the right places. So we find we're actually already cheaper and we can offer a better experience and it drives higher ROI for the brand. So it's really a no-brainer for the majority of brands we work with. And I think as we continue to scale, we'll continue to be able to stay very competitive from a price standpoint. You know, you see this year the traditional carriers have increased their rates substantially, and that will continue to happen. And for the time being, we have not done that, and so we're continuing to just be more and more competitive from a cost standpoint for brands.
Awesome. And then Eli, on your end, how do you use that kind of customer experience to, or that fast deliverability to help your customers kind of feel happy and keep shopping when it's and keep involved with OliPop?
Yeah, I mean, expectation is always important. So setting expectations from day one that, you know, these are the options you have. This is what the experience looks like. And even going through the Ojai shipping experience, getting an SMS that your order is being packed, being able to customize those SMSs so it doesn't feel like a UPS email. It feels like a message that our team wrote copy for because it is. Getting that kind of continuing that experience throughout and from the moment you place the order till you get it 2 hours later, it's that kind of still feels part of the brand experience. I think broadly that's always the difficult part, both between like the you know, that gap of time from placing order to delivery, which to your point, Lauren, you know, brands can optimize a post-purchase email flow, et cetera, but still that time frame and keeping like kind of on brand is always difficult. And for us being able to do that through Ojai is fantastic. And then again, you know, constant segmentation around like if you're in the Ojai customer range, you're getting emails unique to that. And kind of just understanding that when we're sending out an email to people that are shipping with ground, we can't send them an email on Valentine's Day saying buy OliPop because they should have bought it a week ago. Whereas with people, you know, on Ojai, it's like today's Valentine's Day, you're a bit silly, you probably didn't get anything. You can still do it. You know, like thinking of like the difference between marketing, you know, the timing stuff is all super interesting. And then, yeah, like just understanding that the price for same day is the same as, you know, we're most brands, it's like if they're same day, it's more expensive. With us being able to give the same, like if it's 50 or over, or you're a subscriber, it's free delivery every single order, both with same day or with standard ground, is exciting for customers. And yeah, I mean, it's just like the surprise and delight part. Like we even use it on our side for gifting. So there was a customer that was a super fan, lives in SF, has bought in retail a bunch of times, reached out to me, a friend of a friend, and it was like nonstop tweeting about OliPop, super excited about OliPop, and reached out. Her friend, which is my friend, reached out like, hey, check out my friend. She's like nonstop talking about OliPop on Twitter. And I was like, cool, would love to send the case. Can I get her address? And then I get an email an hour later, like, what is this sorcery? Like, you got my address an hour ago. How is that? Like, how is that a thing? So just being able to kind of provide these magical experiences in New York and SF and Chicago, in LA, being able to, like, somebody gets excited about a brand, they get a box within an hour from a courier is insane. Like, that's super exciting. So from the experience, it makes my job easier.
Absolutely. It seems like Ojai's allowed us to give our customers that instant gratification they usually receive in retail, but without having to leave their house necessarily, and with that sustainability that other companies aren't offering quite yet. Ben, I was wondering what's next for Ojai at this point? Like, where do you see the company going, or what are you proudest of that you guys have accomplished now that you want to build off of?
Yeah, so I think what we're doing is incredibly complex. It is a hard problem to solve of how at scale across the US do you enable brands to get product into customers' hands in less than an hour. Like, it's a hard problem to solve, but I think we are making huge strides towards doing that. We're now in 7 markets across the US. By the end of this year, we'll be in 25 markets across the US. Today, we cover on average about 25% of a brand's e-commerce customers. And again, by the end of this year, with that expansion, we'll be close to 60% of a brand's e-commerce customers will be able to receive the brand's products in less than an hour. And that, I think, is really exciting. And we see the market coming to us. I think increasingly brands realize that this is what their customers want and what they expect, and that there's a real revenue generating opportunity here, that you can provide these amazing experiences and massively increase your lifetime value of customers and that repeat purchase rate. So I think for us, it really is about continuing to grow across the US this year. Beyond that, one thing that Eli mentioned there, which I think is the thing that I'm most excited about what Ojai is doing, is we see that when you are getting goods to the customer in less than an hour, less than 2 hours, you suddenly open up this new space that never really existed before for brands to engage with their consumers. And when you're getting product that quickly, in an hour space of time, customers will retain engagement and will talk back and forth to a brand and will click on our tracking links and engage with the tracking pages in a way that we see even for the same day customers don't do. So if you're ordering, I'm on the West Coast right now, if you're ordering at 10:30 in the morning and you're getting your package at 8 p.m., it's very hard to keep a customer engaged for that period of time. But when you're ordering at 10:30 and it's coming by midday, you open up this new space to engage with customers. And so that's where a lot of our focus is going to be as we keep scaling across the network, is what can we do in that space? What opportunities do we create for brands to continue to engage with their customers? So I think those are some of the things that I'm most excited about for the next year.
Absolutely. And I love that engagement's what it's all about nowadays. And you see brands trying to kind of continue that conversation. And I'm wondering, Eli, what kind of you talked about segmentation and having those quick SMS conversations, but what other new marketing communication opportunities have Ojai opened up for you with your customers?
Yeah, I mean, the kind of core, the core piece is, like we mentioned at the beginning of the call, the difference between retail and D2C, right? It's like if somebody's looking to grab something quickly, it's easier to run to a Sprouts and wait 6 days. Especially when you think about a craveable, delicious beverage. When you're in the mood for it, you kind of want it now. So being able to kind of shift the way we talk about, the way we market a beverage, like when you're talking about getting a customer to purchase something or getting the right product in the right place in front of the customer, you talk about it differently when it's get it now versus this is good for you, buy it and you'll get it in 6 days. So again, continuing to segment, like you mentioned earlier, Lauren, email is not about batching and blasting. It's about getting the right message to the right person at the right time. SMS is the same way. So continuing to kind of double down, and when we think we have a good audience, we'll split it again, and continuing to try to get the right message to the right person. And when it comes to sending somebody a marketing push around getting it today versus getting it in a week, we try to split the messaging.
Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine too, we've talked about LTV and how Ojai helps with that. When people are getting that product in an hour, in a day, they're ready to be upsold almost instantly. Like, you're not having to wait for that ship it item to get to them, for them to open it, check their mail, experience it, and then be like, are you ready for your second box of OliPop? They're ready the second it arrives and they see the cool bag and they're ready to go. And they're like, wow, this was an amazing experience from beginning to end.
Yeah. And the other thing I'd say is, being with being with a warehouse that has more products than just Olipop can get interesting, just because when you think about, Ojai is fulfilling for Van Leeuwen ice cream. Van Leeuwen ice cream goes well with a vintage cola. Using that post-purchase experience as an opportunity to like, hey, reply with or click this link to add your Van Leeuwen to create a shake is fascinating. And just both on the upsell side, if we have a limited SKU and a customer is like, hey, I'm super thirsty, buying something for 2 hours, like you're saying, it's easier to kind of upsell them in a way of like, hey, we noticed you haven't tried our orange cream, it'll be out of stock within the next couple of days, do you want to add that to your order? So being able to kind of leverage that instant delivery and the urgency around that as an upsell opportunity is also fascinating.
Yeah, you answered my next question before I even asked, is people trying new flavors like that, but you just build that loyalty so much faster when they're able to, oh, I liked this one, let me grab the other one, it's going to be here in a few minutes.
Brands very often optimize for like, let's find a customer's favorite flavor or SKU and just triple down on it. And I think the mistake around that is that people get bored of having the same thing every day for the most part. And there are very few things that people will just like one and stick to it forever. And for us, that's kind of why we have variety packs. And it's why we're constantly, when subscribers are on a specific SKU, we push them to swap. And just giving people the ability to constantly sample new stuff. Sampling is like, from a psychological perspective, like it's fun to sample at Costco. It's less fun to sample when you wait a week to get it. So that's also like just the ability to kind of quick shift, like, hey, you just ordered this, why don't you try that as well? And then something else we're thinking about is like, how can we kind of, and this is like, I don't even know if Ben is in on this, because this was like an email I sent to our account manager like an hour ago. But it was like, how can we use some stock to surprise and delight? Whereas like somebody orders one flavor and we'll just like toss in another one without even telling them, and they'll just get an additional case of something new to try. And we can figure out what that messaging looks like hey, just FYI, this wasn't a mistake, you're a super fan, we want you to try something new. So really kind of thinking through what that looks like, both on the pick and pack side and on the marketing side and on the CX side. And that's kind of this beautiful, everything kind of meets up together and becomes a great experience.
I love it. It's almost like you're using Ojai to build your loyalty instead of the necessarily traditional loyalty platforms. Instead, you're just doing fast communication, fast delivery, and the customers are so excited. They're talking just as fast back to you, allowing you to create those new flavors and things like that, which is very awesome. I do want to dive in. You mentioned the warehouses and how that worked. Ben, can you talk a little bit more about what it looks like in there and how those brands work together?
Yeah, so the spaces that we use are non-traditional warehousing spaces. These are generally retail spaces. So, we take them over, they're dedicated spaces to Ojai, but they used to be old retail storefronts, for example. And the advantage there is that those are small spaces. They're generally like 2,000 square feet spaces, but they're very, very close to the end customer. We use a lot of data to understand where the concentrations of demand are within a city and optimize to get the inventory as close as possible to the customer to create the fastest delivery experience we can. And so those locations are multi-brand. We have dozens of brands in every single one. And as Eli alluded to, that's what will allow us over time. We're not doing it fully yet, but over time to build these interactions between brands where brands will be able to collaborate on the platform to acquire each other's customers, I think is ultimately how we see it. Because there's a lot of cross-pollination there that could happen. And as Eli says, like that can happen when you deliver very, very quickly. When you create this instant space to engage with your customers, you can start doing that in a much more organic way than you would be able to with traditional logistics networks. So that's what the network looks like. I think the other thing that I would just highlight that we haven't touched on yet is the use for subscription orders. I think there's a very clear use case for like one-off instant purchases. But I know that the OliPop have worked with us now for quite a long time with their subscribers. And I think it'd be great to like talk a little bit about why we do subscription orders for OliPop and what the advantages are for that subscriber customer base as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to dive in. You're seeing subscription orders become more and more popular nowadays for everything from razors to toothpaste to whatnot. Before, like, I should get my favorite beverage just as quickly and always have my fridge stocked with it. Side story is that my boyfriend has a wine cooler in his office where he keeps his favorite sodas so that he can snack on them all day. So how has your subscription customer base changed, and what has Ojai done to help with that?
Yeah, I think subscription broadly yeah, has been due for an overhaul for a while. And I think about the fact that, you know, from a brand, and this is a much longer conversation, but from a brand perspective, it's very clear why customers should sign up for a subscription, right? It's monthly recurring revenue, and it's only one acquisition cost. So that's pretty clear. I think where brands kind of fail to stop and think is how is that good for a customer? And I think, you know, discount is very entry level. It's very low on the hierarchy of needs as far as like why somebody should love a brand. Getting a discount makes you sign up, doesn't keep you around. And I think the ability to rely on a product is what, you know, if you need a razor, you need it today, not in 4 to 7 days. And if you're out of soda, you want it today, not next week. So the ability to be able to rely on delivery, not just shipping, is exciting for us. So for customers, knowing that on the 26th of every month they get their pop instead of that's when it ships, is super exciting, because it gets to a point where it's really difficult to rely on delivery dates, versus when you know that shipping and delivery are the same day or the next day. It becomes much easier to kind of promise. And it's something as a brand, you know, especially on the customer experience side, we focus on is, you know, I think a lot of brands are focusing on, you know, beating expectations instead of meeting them. And that's our goal. So if subscription experience can be flawless, and you can have early access to new flavors and A, B, C, D, and E, the fact that you can have reliability around delivery is the cherry on top.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it's the flexibility as well. Like we just launched a new product line for specifically for subscription customers that we call schedule delivery. And under that format for subscription customers, people can get, the consumer gets a text message say, hey, your subscription is due to be delivered on Saturday, but you can change if you want it earlier or if you want it later. And that instant network gives the consumer a lot of flexibility. Like Eli says, if you run out, oh, I actually want it today, I don't want to wait another 3 days, you can do that. And if you maybe were on holiday and you have more than you wanted and you want to push it out by another week, the system allows that sort of flexibility. And I think that's for a subscriber, to keep a subscriber as a subscriber, I think that sort of flexibility is so important.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys are leading the revolution of small businesses and customers kind of being able to get what they want when they want it, and not needing all the weight of like USPS or shipping companies and things like that to make it happen. We have 5 more minutes before Q&A, but I wanted to ask, what would you say, Ben, to brands who feel like they're too small to join this uprising, to be a part of Ojai and to make a difference in like their shipping?
Yeah, so our ICP, our ideal customer profile, is generally mid-market to enterprise size brands. Generally, the threshold that we would look at is if a brand is doing at least 4,000 orders a month across the US, that's probably the threshold at which we would start working with them. And then we work, you know, with very large public companies that do millions of orders across the US. And so I think the reason for that is that where we see a real benefit is increased conversion, and then increased repeat purchase rate and increased loyalty. And when a brand is very early stage, there just isn't necessarily enough volume or enough customers that can use it to really make a difference. And maybe those 20 or 30 customers a month that use it do have higher repeat purchase rates, but on such a small base, it doesn't necessarily like impact the top line for the brand to as large an extent. So generally, that's really that mid-market and up is where we start working with brands, and where we find that they have a huge amount of success. And you know, it's really like adding fuel to the fire for fast-growing brands, of just really helping them accelerate their growth.
Absolutely. And I feel like for brands trying to get there, as long as they kind of do treat their customers as well as they can with those peaks and valleys and kind of fill them as much as they can, they'll find themselves building that loyalty organically and then become ready for Ojai to, like you said, add fuel to that fire and just get it going. but it's really up to the brands to kind of find small wins in their email, SMS, instant marketing channels so that they're building that loyalty from the start. And then they get to surprise and delight with the, oh, and now we've partnered with Ojai. You're ready to even triple your loyalty and your LTV, ROI, and all those great numbers we talked about. Awesome. And any closing remarks either of you guys want to share before we dive into Q&A?
No, I think that's it. I think we covered it all. I mean, from what's next on the OliPop side, the last 2 years have been, our launch in 2022 is going to be a lot of new flavors, and a lot of exciting new retail launches, and D2C consistently growing alongside it. So super excited to kind of get started on all that fun stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'd say it's thank you to Eli for joining us. It's been a pleasure working with you and the team over the last, I guess, 18 months or so. You were one of our first customers, so it's been a great journey, and I think we'll continue as we expand across the whole US now.
Right back at you.
Awesome. Well, we got quite a few questions here today. One of the first ones is, does Ojai provide frozen storage?
Very soon we will. We're actively working on it right now. So very soon we'll have that cold chain network set up. I know there's a lot of benefits of an instant network for brands that are frozen. Shipping frozen products across the US is extremely expensive and requires a lot of packaging, and we can help significantly with that. So that's hopefully by end of quarter we'll have a frozen cold chain in place that we'll be able to work with those brands.
That's awesome. The next question is, are there any creative campaigns where you use the power of instant to engage end customers? Eli, do you want to answer this one?
Yeah, I think we've there's also a couple of questions in the Q&A box. I think we've touched on that earlier, just around the thing about Super Bowl and Valentine's Day, and just really talking about the you want it, you can have it right now idea, and obviously delivering on the soda cues of cold beverage over ice and all that fun stuff that makes people excited to taste the product versus buy the product. And I think that's kind of the broader difference between when you think about long-term marketing, it's like talking about the features and the perks and the benefits and why you want to hop into something versus like, it's delicious, you can taste it now. Because if you think about it, it's kind of the cues that we take from the retail side as well. If you think about retail, we're just a can on the shelf. And for somebody that hasn't heard of OliPop before, all they see is what it says in the can. And if you ever sit in a Whole Foods and watch people picking cans off the shelf, it's pretty fast. Like, there's not a lot of people that are reading every ingredient. There's not a lot of people looking at anything other than the aesthetic of the can, and maybe the cost. And that's the interesting thing is, like, you like something, you like the way it looks, you like the way it sounds, you've heard about the brand. In the retail side, you just pick it up. So why is D2C so wildly different? The customers have to be, sent 7 emails or targeted 9 times and retargeted to make the same purchase. Then retail, you pick up in a second. And it's again, kind of going back to that instant gratification, right? In retail, you're less worried because you're buying it and you hope that you like it. If not, the regret is over as fast as the gratification is over, if there is regret. Whereas with D2C, there's purchase and then there's regret, which as a marketer, our job is to minimize that regret. But by the time you get it, you're usually so over it that if you regret it even harder. And that's the kind of mission with how we market differently on instant versus, when we're looking at instant, we're looking like, how can we market as if we're standing in the aisle of the store? Like, what would we tell you? If you're walking by and you can pick up anything in that fridge, like, how are we talking about OliPop versus whatever else you can choose?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And then, like you talked about earlier, all that segmentation, you're telling people if it's a really hot day in Florida and you want to send bottles to them, you can choose in that moment to talk about the weather and personalize it and be like, where's your OliPop? Come and get it, and use that retail marketing in your emails because they're getting that fast experience either way. Another Q&A is for Eli. Where did your distribution journey begin, and did your larger retail deals like Target help navigate new distribution partners? How did that affect your decision to begin last mile delivery journey?
This is a great question. Probably not the best question for me, just because I'm more on the D2C side and the retail side. But I'll say from a retail perspective, distribution is very different than, we're sending truckloads and not pallets. How do the deals like Target navigate new distribution partners? I mean, I wish I can talk more on that, but in terms of just broader distribution, I think, the way distribution for a D2C product that's not owned by, a Unilever is that it's connections and it's a waterfall. So we started with Whole Foods just in Northern California. And then we launched in Sprouts, and then, they're looking at velocities. And if you sell well in Sprouts, then you launch at Sprouts National. Once you hit Sprouts National, you hopefully get Whole Foods National, and eventually, you can prove that your product on the shelf is doing well, and it's great for them to put your product versus somebody else. And it's kind of how Target happened. But yeah, I wish I can talk more on the ops side, but
that was good. I think Ben might be able to add some things there. And then they also added another question for you, Ben, as well as how many micro warehouses does your hub service in any given metro like LA?
Yeah, so our hubs will service multiple cities. So at the moment we have an East Coast and a West Coast hub that service the cities across the respective coasts, and we're opening up a Dallas hub this quarter that will then serve all of Texas and more of the middle of the country. And so as we keep adding more and more micro warehouses across the country, the idea is from a brand's perspective, you're inbounding to, I think you'll get to max 4 or 5 hub locations across the country that will then be able to service pretty much every city in the US. So that's really how the hub and spoke model works. And that came out of feedback that we heard when we first started. We did not have hubs in place, and it was challenging for brands to inbound, less than truckload into every single MFC. Now with hubs, it allows us to aggregate those brands all together in a single full truckload and flow down to every MFC within the network.
Awesome. Follow-up question to that is, did you see a customer tipping point on time to delivery versus cost?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but my understanding of the question is that does that raise conversion in terms of offering that option? Yes. We've definitely seen higher in-cart conversion when customers choose Ojai versus choosing a standard option. And again, a 12-pack of soda for $35 is not cheap, right? And I think that the flip side of that is, the comparison that consumers have is something that costs 75 cents and is sparkling water and phosphoric acid and some flavor, and this is slippery elm bark and kudzu. So the cost is different to create it, and we don't have the volume that the larger brands have. But I think the cherry on top is if you can make that decision and have the product quickly. So, and it's something we continue to work with Ojai on, is they launched a widget which we can have on the product page on the PDP, where it shows, based on your zip code, you can get this in 2 hours. And that giving consumers that ability to see that early on. So whether they hop on a Facebook ad that takes them directly to the PDP, they read about the product, they learn about the product, and then they see they can get it the same day. We kind of, again, pulling that cue from retail, where it's that decision you're making that you can actually enjoy in 2 hours. We've definitely seen an increase in both on the in-cart conversion and on the AOV and the LTV and a bunch of other fun stats.
Yeah, it definitely seems like if you can get customers' items to them faster, then they're going to shop faster and shop more, which is, I know, what other big brands like Amazon have seen. But with OliPop, you're getting that good feeling of supporting a small business that's sustainable. Do you guys have any ideas on how to shift shopping behavior to D2C while having a less than ideal fulfillment partner?
I do. I think there's 2 things, right? I think first of all, the idea of like shifting behavior is really difficult. And I think that for us, we're trying to meet customer behavior and meet customers where they're at, versus like if somebody wants to specifically purchase from Amazon because they like using their Amazon credit card for 5% back, but we're not spamming them with emails to try to get them to switch. Like the ideal situation is to giving consumers the best experience wherever they are. So if customers buy from, and we have all the time, consumers buy on OliPop and then go into retail, and that's objectively not a bad thing. the ideal customer journey is the journey that the customer takes as long as they stay with us, and that whether they buy us at Target or Amazon or Whole Foods or whatever is totally a-okay. On the second part of like having a less than ideal fulfillment partner, in the last 8 years, I've definitely been with brands that had terrible fulfillment partners, and it's super difficult because I think there's the fulfillment side and then there's the customer service fulfillment side, right? It's like if we have an issue, being able to get an answer from a partner like Ojai in a half hour versus, you know, I've seen partners that takes them 48 hours is difficult. Negotiating SLAs is something that I talk about pretty often, as like before you sign up with a partner, making sure you negotiate like, what do I expect in terms of getting a customer resolution, especially when customers are like, where's my order? And it takes you 24 hours to hear back from the fulfillment partner, and then another 24 hours for them to reach out to FedEx to get back to them. All of a sudden it's 3 days, and obviously customers don't like it. And then finally, I personally would think about switching fulfillment partners if it's not a conversation you can have and it doesn't get better. I mean, it's really difficult to kind of switch the way somebody else thinks about their fulfillment and their customer service, but it is imperative. Like having a great experience, you know, is if you don't have a great experience and you're trying to push people into it, you end up with one of two things. Either customers hate the brand just because of their shipping, which is really a terrible place to be, where it's like the product's great but the shipping's terrible and that's why they don't repurchase. Like that churn is really bad, and honestly, like we've seen negative shipping experiences cause churn, and that's like a terrible place to be because it's not even in your control. Like if FedEx messes up and I lose a customer, that sucks. And then yeah, I think that's like the most difficult part is like being able to set those expectations. Like if in a situation where if we're in the holiday season and a customer doesn't have the ability to ship with Ojai, we will put a banner on the page that says it'll take an extra 5 days. And you know what? Our conversion is lower and our acquisition goes up, but the customers that come in end up having higher LTV and stick around because we're being honest. So I'd say playing the long game on the lowering conversion, and we'll put a banner on the product page that says we are taking longer than normal to fulfill orders. We'll add it to the post-purchase email in big red letters. It can take a while for this to ship. And we'll just set those expectations the same way if somebody orders on Kickstarter and it takes 6 months to deliver to them, they're not angry because that's what they expected. So that's a little bit of a ramble, but the couple of tips I have around the
yeah, and I think what you're saying on, you know, from a fulfillment provider standpoint, for me it comes down to expectation setting and like error resolution, and it really is a partnership with a brand and whoever's fulfilling the orders. That things inevitably go wrong in operations and delivery. Things inevitably go wrong, and it really is about working from a partnership standpoint to resolve those issues and how quickly can you resolve them and fix them going forward. And I think if you are not feeling that partnership from whoever's doing your fulfillment, then you know, I probably would also recommend you leave, because it's such an integral part to your customer's perception of your brand that you need that partner there that understands that and is able to work with you to solve any issues that come up. So
yeah, absolutely. And I like that transparency you mentioned in email marketing or SMS marketing, however you're getting that out to your customers. Especially this last couple of years, you've seen a lot of brands have to send multiple shipping emails. USPS is experiencing delays. We're here for you however we can be. But you're also seeing that transparent marketing in other places too, around holidays and things like that, which has become really interesting that brands are kind of, even if they do have that less than ideal fulfillment partner, they're being as transparent with their buyers about it in ways they can to try and build and keep that loyalty and that conversion there. What cities can Ojai get a product to customers on the same day?
So we're in 7 markets today, where so Brooklyn, New York, Jersey, Philly, which is launching same day in literally a few weeks, Chicago, LA, San Jose, San Diego. I'm sure I'm missing some. SF, LA. Yeah, if I miss those out. So those are the markets that we have today. And like I say, we'll open up Texas this quarter, and probably also Seattle, DC, and then maybe Portland as well this quarter as well. So we are growing quickly and opening up, you know, as many cities as possible, because we see this from we see the data is so clear, the benefits, the brands, and we see the market opportunity now. And so we're really just on all guns blazing, opening as many cities as we can.
Awesome. Love that. And I know we have time for probably one or two more questions. I do want to let everybody know that we will directly email answers to questions that we don't get to. So feel free to just keep putting them in the Q&A and you will get your answer at some point. I like this one from Jess talking about what part of the post-purchase experience do you think is most often overlooked in terms of communication with the customer for a brand that doesn't offer shipping faster than 2 days? I think, yeah.
Yeah, no, I love this question. Sorry, I just jumped in. I love this question because I think the time between place order, and it's something I remember chatting with David, who's the co-founder and president of OliPop, on my interview. I was chatting about this, the time from place order, it's this like mountain of hype, especially with D2C brands. Like you're kind of selling through this Facebook ad or whatever ad or the influencer ad or the podcast, and they get to the site and it's a stunning experience. They go through the whole process and then they kind of get to this climax of place order, and then it's radio silence for a week or 10 days. And even on the post-purchase, like there's a lot of like, oh, thank you for your order, we appreciate it. But the ideal, and this is my opinion, is that the ideal use of time between that order is placed and the customer gets it is explaining two things. First of all, who are we? And second of all, what does success on this product look like? And when you think about a beverage, it's like, what does drinking OliPop do for you long term? Getting consumers hyped and excited to kind of keep that excitement there from purchase. And I imagine Lauren has a lot to share on this because email's your world. But kind of keeping people hyped and whatever, like I often think about is how can we resell the product after they already purchased it? That's my dream. If we can kind of affirm, we're battling this regret because anyone that purchases and spends money on a product that is expensive feels regret inevitably. And how can we kind of battle that by reselling and affirming this is a great decision, you made a great decision, you'll enjoy it. So by the time they enjoy it, whatever happened from that time till that time, they still kind of feel just as good. Because if you're just quiet for that time, they feel regret. And by the time they get it, they're kind of over it because it was a impulse decision they made, and now they're like, yeah, what was this about? Yeah,
I think that's right. That purchase time is really peak excitement for the customer. That's when you've got the most hyped, and then that drops over time. And so the longer it takes you to get good to the customer, the more likely, like obviously with beverage, return is pretty low, but in apparel, this is a huge problem. It's like the slow delivery times. By the time someone gets the product, they're like, oh, I kind of forgot I even ordered this. And now I'm just going to instantly return it. So I think it is, how do you maintain that excitement that's generated? This was a whole philosophy for Ojai. How do you maintain that excitement of that pre-purchase experience into post-purchase, and how do you communicate with the customer? And I think for slower delivery times, like Eli says, there is communication you can do, but I do think it's harder to maintain that customer's interest over the course of 3 to 5 days.
Yeah, I'm bummed I saved the question we all got most excited for last, but just want to add to that. I think my mind instantly goes to SMS and email triggers, making sure that for customers who haven't had their product order fulfilled yet, you're keeping that hype, like you said. That's my keyword. But you're also acknowledging they did make a purchase and it's on their way, even if you don't have those details. So like sending the reviews, sending them like, we're excited for you to try this, it's coming soon, and acknowledging, and not just marketing to them in a way that's like focused on the company, but it's also focused on, hey, we might not have as much control on delivery time, but we have a lot of control in keeping you excited. And here's how we're going to do it. So I love that part of email marketing. Somebody asked earlier, like what creative campaigns. I could spend a whole afternoon trying to come up with cool ways to be like, get ready, get excited. And you're seeing more and more brands do that in that time frame between confirmation and it arriving on their front door, which is really cool. Instant marketing with SMS, instant delivery with Ojai. It's becoming a very instant marketplace for all our customers and just trying to build that loyalty through it. We have unfortunately reached time 1 minute over. I do want to thank you guys both for coming out today. Definitely appreciate it. I learned a lot about everybody, and a lot of people asked some really good questions. Like I said, you will get your answers via email. And just want to remind you all, there will be a survey coming to your inbox shortly. If you guys wouldn't mind taking 2 to 3 minutes to answer it, that can help make sure we're still delivering great webinars, great content to you guys with our awesome partners like Eli and Ben.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.